How many years have you been in your neighborhood? Decades? Few months? How would you describe your neighborhood? If you were to sketch it on paper, what would you draw? Some neighborhoods have names. The church is in the Creek Knoll neighborhood. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Some neighborhoods are just a few blocks. Others cover entire school bus routes. Some have a lot of people moving in and out of many apartments and condos. Others have only a handful of houses in the entire neighborhood. My wife's brother has lived in the same neighborhood for over 60 years in 2 farmhouses connected by one big cornfield. That's his neighborhood. Imagine yours now. Here's the question. Would you be able to say, I love my neighborhood? Over the next weeks, you're literally about to alter the future of your city. Your life and the eternal lives of people in your social and geographical neighborhood could be different forever. It starts by loving them. But wait. The question you asked is, are you able to say, I love my neighborhood? Isn't that what I asked? Maybe you were thinking the buildings, the trees, the street, the houses, how close together things are or how spread apart, urban, suburban, rural, city, country. You might be thinking, you asked about our neighborhoods. Now you're talking about loving people. Well, yes, I am. Here's why. A long time ago, Jesus was asked by a man about what the most important commandment is. His response? Of all the commandments, which is the most important? The most important one, answered Jesus, is this. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this. Love your neighbor as yourself. Why is loving your neighbor so important? He closed with, there's no commandment greater than these. Jesus was pointing out to that guy that he had a mission. What's the most important teaching you can share with me, Rabbi? Well, here it is, Jesus said. It's not difficult. You already know it. Now do it. Love God and love your neighbor. That's your mission. What if Christians were the best neighbors? Would your street change? What if your neighborhood and all the people who live there, what would happen if homes were filled with love and acceptance? What if forgiveness and encouragement started to be part of relationships in families? What if the lonely were noticed and the forgotten were celebrated? What if the most unlovable were genuinely loved with Christ-like love? What if we followers of Jesus, who are on a mission didn't just go to church. What if we truly were the church right where we lived? Would heaven be fuller? What if we don't have to travel far to get close to people who are distant from God? Well, when I say neighborhood, what comes to my mind is going back to Itasca, Illinois. That's where I was living when I learned that term, neighborhood. So that's what I always envisioned. Johnny, Tom, Linda, Bobby, Cindy, we all lived there. I can picture rooms in their houses. I see windows from both the outside looking in and the inside looking out. And I can see in my mind's eye backyards. We were neighbors, along with the many old people that lived around too. In fact, I can still draw you a map of the streets and tell you the family name of everyone who lived in each house. I delivered papers, so I even knew the names of the people that I really didn't know at all. My neighborhood. Well, we moved in 2020, and one morning I was dropping off some of the things that we had packed up into the garage, and a police car stopped out in front. And he asked, "Are you moving in here?" And I thought to myself, I don't have any paperwork to prove my identity or my ownership. And in fact, we hadn't even closed on the house. The previous owners had moved out and agreed we could start moving some things into the garage. Then something happened. He got out of his squad car, walked up to me, put his hand out to shake mine, and he said, "I'm Roy. I live 2 houses down," and pointed in that direction. As he drove off, I called Joanne and I told her, "I met our neighbor." And then it hit me. He shook my hand. That was the first person I'd shaken hands with since the beginning of the pandemic, 8 months earlier. And I felt so welcomed. I mean, it was like he was breaking a societal protocol to be a good neighbor. And it worked. It was as if he had communicated to me, it's been a really hard year, and I want you to know that this is going to be a great place for you to live. Welcome to the neighborhood. St. Peter's biblical purpose is very straightforward and, might I say, very important. Our purpose is meeting families at the intersection of faith and real life. And it just so happens that intersection is found right in, you guessed it, that intersection is found right in your neighborhood. Meeting families, connecting with families, sharing life with families, being there for families, loving families. And where are these families? Right in your neighborhood. That's why Jesus is waking you up this fall to your mission. And we're gonna dig into this in these coming weeks under this theme, I love my neighborhood. And when you accept his commandment to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself, then you'll be able to say, I love my neighborhood. Do you love God? I hope so. I hope you know that He cares about you so much that He sent His Son into this earth to be your neighbor. And even when you were doing a miserable job being a child or an adult or as a worker or student or family member or neighbor, even when God said, all you needed to do is love me and love others, but you failed. You didn't do so well at that. That's when Jesus stepped up and said, I did it perfectly. So I'll take my perfection and place it upon him, upon her. And seeing the sacrifice that Jesus made for us, now we're thankful. We're grateful. We receive that grace, that undeserved love, and say, Lord, I can't believe you did this for me. I love you so much. And that's a beautiful, beautiful place to find yourself, recipients of God's mercy. That's the first step. Then he said, the second most important thing we could ever do is like the first. Love your neighbors as yourself.
A number of years ago, my friend Dave Runyon and I hosted a group of pastors from our city to try to think through how do we make the biggest impact in our city together. And lots of pastors do this kind of work in their city, and we did what many of them do, which is we invited our mayor to come and talk to us and tell us what he saw in the city, what he thought we could be working on, and really how we could partner together. And of course, we came into the room with a number of thoughts in our mind, like, oh, we're probably going to think about homelessness or youth crime or any number of things. And predictably, he shared a lot of those things, like, here's some problems we see in the city. Here's a way you could work with schools. But in the middle of talking, he kind of paused and he said, you know, if you guys could start some kind of a neighboring movement where you got neighbors to know one another and take care of one another, it would change about every problem that we have in the life of our city. And I'm sitting there with a bunch of pastors, and I spoke up and I said, I'm not sure if we just noticed what happened, but the mayor of our city challenged a group of pastors to consider taking Jesus seriously. Like, what if, as pastors, we could get our people to obey Jesus? See, my journey had started years before that. I was on staff at a church where I was doing ministry all the time. I had had one specific day that created a crisis for me. And I think so much of change happens in crisis, doesn't it? Like, something goes wrong and it disrupts you, and that's what this day was for me. And I called my wife because I was headed home, and I said, oh man, I am so tired of all these people. I'm so glad to be done with the day. And she said, oh, but you forgot. We're hosting Bible study that we're leading tonight. I said, oh, I actually just can't do that. We have to cancel Bible study. She said, you can't cancel Bible study like 2 hours before Bible study. I said, no, you can. You can do it. It's pretty easy to do. I can show you. She said, no, we can't cancel. And our compromise was we would have a fellowship night, like a barbecue. People would just bring food and we hang out. And I thought, okay, I can barely manage that. So I was psyching myself up. And as I walked up to our apartment, there were people that I didn't recognize standing all over in the courtyard. And as I got closer, they were walking in and out of my apartment. And I'm going, what is going on here? And interspersed between them were folks from my Bible study, but then a whole bunch of strangers. And I thought, I don't know what this is. And it turns out what Danielle had done, my wife, is as people were coming home in our apartment complex, she just started inviting them over. Like, hey, we're throwing a party, grab something out of the fridge, come hang out with us. And all these people came. And it turns out all of these strangers were actually my neighbors. It was a life-changing moment. As we got to know these people, we effectively became the pastors of this apartment complex. We walked people through addictions. We were in the middle of some domestic violence stuff going on in our apartment that we didn't even know was there because I didn't know any of these people. They were strangers, even though they were my neighbors. I was doing ministry all the time, but I would get in my car and drive somewhere else. I couldn't even recognize any of the people that surround me. I couldn't pick them out of a lineup, let alone was I actually fulfilling the Great Commandment. You know the Great Commandment. If you've read the Bible, you've been around the Bible at all, you've probably heard the Great Commandment. Just right now, think in your mind, what is the Great Commandment? What is that again? Jesus says, all the law and the prophets are summed up in this. All the law and the prophets, that's a big part of the Bible, is summed up in this. To love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. To love your neighbor as yourself.
National Good Neighbor Day is September 28th. I had no idea this holiday even existed. I wasn't aware that in 1978, then President Jimmy Carter signed a nationwide proclamation to promote the idea of good neighboring. But now I know. So I want to take advantage of National Good Neighbor Day, and I want to use it as an excuse to talk to my neighbors. What about you? Did you know about National Good Neighbor Day? Well, now you do. And I'd like to encourage you to make a plan to connect with one neighbor. Start with hello. If you haven't gotten to know all your neighbors, try to find an opportunity to say hello and learn a new neighbor's name. And you can do it in honor of National Good Neighbor Day. And you can tell them, hey, it's National Good Neighbor Day. I'm Mark, and introduce yourself. Maybe you know your neighbors a little bit, but you could probably know them a little bit better. Use National Good Neighbor Day as an excuse for that as well. And if you already know all your neighbors, you are amazing. Then here are some other suggestions for you this week. You could learn the names of more neighbors who are around or grandchildren's name. You could take some sidewalk chalk and decorate your neighborhood, or pick up some litter, or write a thank you note to a community leader. And if you're really brave and if you really get into this, I hope you will, then take a picture of what you do and share it. You can do it with a hashtag STP I love my neighborhood, or email it to stpneighbor@stpetersedina.org. I'd love to celebrate your love for your neighborhood. Our biblical blessing continues that mission of loving your neighborhood. May the Lord make your love increase and overflow for each other and for everyone else.
All your ways are good, all your ways are sure. I will trust in you alone, higher than my sight, high above my life. I will trust in you alone. Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow you. Who you love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. life everlasting. In you there's freedom for my soul. In you there's joy, unending joy. In you there's life everlasting. In you there's freedom for my soul. In you there's joy, unending joy. And I will follow. Who you love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. If this life I lose,